Thank you, Hammer. You're on the screen on YouTube, so that's good. So wherever you want to start, doing your, opening and maybe, yeah, setting it up, for the audience, let them know what exactly they're looking at, and then we could go through it. We could have a back and forth. I'll let you talk as much as you need, say what you need to say, and that way, it will be all explained. But go ahead.
Okay, if anyone knows, I sort of made friends with Dr. Rob Parks. He runs an observatory, and I thought it'd be better to keep him around and to get in a fight with him. So we got along pretty well. And if anyone can see my screen, there's a video he made, and it was really exciting to me, this video, because it was called "Why Do You Believe the Shape of the Earth Matters?" And he went through a few things, and he discussed. He mentioned me. I look up. I'm like, what the fuck, And he said that he knows that I use flat Earth to talk about other things, and he understands that. What he didn't understand was, why didn't we believe him? And that's kind of a bummer, because to me it's not about belief, and he knows that. He knows that I've done some, like experiments and things, and that it's really more about what we can talk about than what we believe, because we're talking science. So here he is, a scientist, talking about belief to a flat earther, and I didn't think that was fair. And I watched him at Geo's come around for the past month or so and learn some things from us that he took back to his own channel and discussed. So this is an astronomer coming to flat Earth, learning from us after going, and then asking why we don't take him for face value, just because we were ahead of him in this particular instance in his own field. Then I showed the guy, what do you call it? The new pictures of the saturated moon, and the moon's all saturated with all this color, and he goes, "Oh, that's fake." And I'm like, I don't know. I kind of watched this guy do it the other day. He said it's just saturation and there's no adding of hue. It's called stacking. And he goes, "Oh, well, let's see." So the guy's basically able to say, So I said, hey, I typed in chat, we need to talk. Well, a week later, he said we could talk, and he set a date. And I didn't want to get into it with him too much, so I decided to bring in PhD Tony. Now, PhD Tony is an interesting cat. He's been a hothead in the past, and he tries not to do it. He's got a lot of expertise. But the sad part about this talk is that I was with PhD Tony for an hour, and we talked about all his specialty and his expertise. So I understand what PhD Tony's, where he's coming from. And I wanted him to be here too, to hear this. And at the beginning of this talk, there were some technical issues. There was quite a bit of crowd, and Rob was sort of dealing with that. And eventually I had Wendell Walton, the science advisor from our free group, come along. But so far, I just want to start this a little bit. I guess I could just fast forward to a bit of a nightmare already, as some of the timestamps I put, is it turns out that Professor Tony had a demand that we produce better results. And I thought that was interesting to note, because I thought with over 35 observations that we'd done pretty well. I'll just play a clip of that.
It's a geometric sphere surrounded by varying layers of varying indices of reflection. So that needs to be modeled and then compared to the result.
I'd like to jump in to say a couple of things if I could, Rob. It's clear that you and Dan are both very diligent, and you're both trying to get to the truth here. And I applaud that. I really applaud the amount of work that you're both putting in to trying to get there. All we're trying to do is suggest how you could make this experiment sufficiently persuasive that it would have an impact on us.
sufficiently persuasive that would have more impact upon him. Want you to remember that as we go forward.
Because at the moment, with the way
Right.
things stand, there are just some confounding variables that you haven't taken into account.
Confounding variables. I wonder what those are. I wonder how he came to that conclusion.
Said impact on us. So I think he meant you'll have more of an impact on them if you fulfill whatever their requirements are.
Well, he's got some ideas about what we should do.
And we're going to say, well, let's look at those confounding variables in detail. And so nobody's attacking you guys. Nobody's saying you're making anything up. Nobody's saying that this is an ill-conceived concept or that you're an idiot for asking. All of this is fine. We're just trying to suggest some ways that you can make your results more robust. That's
okay. So I want you to hear that again. We should be more robust in order to be sufficiently persuasive, because there's some confounding variables. I'm gonna just bust it out. Later on, he admits he's never watched anything we're done. He's never watched a thing, and he's completely pulling that out of his ass. And that is an embarrassing form of bias right there. I've got a mark here at 1:40:30. I don't know what it is. I hope I didn't waste your time with this moment.
not because we're not taking him on faith, because he is presenting evidence. And he thinks that the evidence is extremely persuasive. That's where his frustration is coming from. We seem to be denying the evidence that he considers to be persuasive.
Again, the poor guy never looked, and thank goodness I caught him, because that's hard to believe that somebody could have an opinion and not care. I mean, not care enough to look into it.
Maybe it depends on how much you've told him, so he already understands it without seeing it, because you maybe, I don't know if you have or not, just told him so much about what you did that he can actually picture it in his head. I don't know.
Well, yeah, I actually,
Maybe.
yeah, that's what I actually might figure out, and what he actually says. There's probably a good 5 minutes to listen to that part of it here. And this is where I snag them and I catch them, and I'm sorry, I lost my cool a little bit, but these guys need to be spanked. I'm sorry.
I want to know the angle between subtended by these 2 points at the laser.
Now he's making up what he thought we did, and I noticed we've never done anything like that.
While I give Wendell a moment to put together that answer, I'm going to point out to you that you're imagining this experiment, which means you have watched nothing we've done. You've taken it on faith because you, like me, that we pulled off anything, and you've watched nothing because the exact thing you described has never happened. Never once. That experiment has never been performed by us. That shows you the bias that you have coming in here, the confusion that you're bringing to regular people, and the disaster that we all have with accidental BS that we end up going, you're a liar, you're a liar. You're not a liar. You're just sort of sorting in your head what we think we might have done. You haven't researched it. You haven't watched 8 minutes of it. Trust me, because we haven't done that observation that way.
So poor Parks, he's going to try and intervene now. He's going to try and calm me down. But in fact, in between muting me and trying to deal with me, Tony comes back on, and damned if he doesn't admit that he's never looked. He's shaking his head right now because he knows he's straight up busted. I swear this is a guy I like who made a big mistake, and I feel bad.
But I don't think that's what he said. I think what he was saying that he wanted to hear that you've done these certain things in the experiment. And
well, it's about to come up at 1:45:11, so let me fast forward to that, and I wrote down admits. So at 1:45:11, I believe he admits, and here we go.
The reality is that I haven't, and there's a reason for that, because I'm not an expert in optics.
Now, number one, he says the reason is it's because he's not an expert. I can appreciate that, but that's not a reason not to look.
Nor am I an expert in lasers, mate.
And that's another reason that he didn't have to look. But the point is, he maintained an opinion, even though he admitted he didn't look. He maintained an opinion, and that is dishonest.
So my opinion on whether or not you've done things properly is actually worthless. So all I can say is, is give my opinion. And if I've mischaracterized you and lied about you, that was not my intent. I did not intend to misrepresent what you were doing. But the question that you seem outraged by remains valid. And it's the key question that we've been talking about for ages, which is assuming a globe model.
Now, that's a funny thing. But what they're finally going to get around to doing here is make what they feel is a demand. And the funny thing about their demand is they're demanding that I explain fraction, that I calculate refraction for them, because they feel that we've refused to put in these numbers, that we've refused to refer to the Metabunk calculator, and that we exceed all forms of refraction, which is the only thing we knew of at the time. There is something new at this point, though. They've introduced something called a gradient, and a gradient is something else they describe as a lapse rate. And I just finally understand what it is. It really has to do with affecting the speed of light, and you have to have a dramatic, what they call gradient, but literally a shocking difference. I'll give you a great example. Hot cement during the day, and then the cool wind comes in as the sun goes down. And you'll have a great difference between the two areas, the ground, the surface, and the air. This will cause a gradient in one direction towards the cold in this case, so your gradient would go upwards, I believe. Now, in another case, you could have first thing in the morning, where you have the cold of the ground, but now you have the hot of the day. So it's inverted, your heat is above, and that's what they're saying we're experiencing. But they expect cold on the water, and they expect our heat above to make the light curve downward. They don't think we're capable of making a straight line. The crazy thing is, when we get down low, we're only looking through one medium. It's not going through the atmospheric layers that count for what they call gradient in atmosphere. So the gradient temperatures are the next thing. It turns out at the Salton Sea, where we've done a lot of our work, what you're going to find is that it's geothermically heated. And in some of our experiments, you have an exact temperature between the air and the water. So you have to understand that we've taken away most of the reasons that you're going to have a refraction to begin with, particularly add a cool, dry day to that, and you're going to be able to see a long way. I just want to thank everyone that's watching, because we think this is pretty much a key moment where they're really backpedaling here. And what happens, they begin to set a standard for what we should be calculating. And at the end, it's a bust. It's a big bust, because it's their responsibility. Remember, refraction is the response to what we must be seeing. If anybody hasn't seen the response, the standard response is
Not a claim. That is a demonstration.
now. I'm saying, at this point, I'm saying to them, they're saying it must be bending. Saying, well, I'm demonstrating a straight line, and they're saying, well, this is what you should be doing to show refraction. I'm saying, no, this is what you should be doing. After a great deal of argument, I did get a concession out of Rob that it was ridiculous for them to ask me to both calculate and demonstrate their theory of why light must be bending. Here that is. And go. This is my concession out of Rob. It was really nice of him to say this, and I appreciate him having us on.
Not a claim. That is a demonstration. Now, you demonstrate it at least on paper before you get the fuck out there and show me, but you can't do it on paper, and you're telling me it's my responsibility to prove your theory? You're getting as bad as Tony.
What I time, you have a point. Maybe we should supply given your data.
We've allowed you in.
Hold on. I'm conceding something for you. You have given data, and we have not done what I have asked. We have not tried to use your data to figure out a range to a knowledge of. We have not done it. Whether it's our responsibility or not, that is not an argument that I want to have after the day that I've had.
Well, that's what I was up against. I got gaslit by someone that didn't watch. Then the two of them gang together and set parameters for something they expected me to do. This is hardly scientific. I feel sorry for these guys. They're both nice guys, but they embarrass themselves in terms of what the methods are.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Does anybody have any questions?
No, can you hear me? Hello, check.
Yeah.
No, I was just gonna say, like, it's really interesting that when they did that, and to hear it that night when it was happening in real time, I was like, wow, like this doesn't look good. But the thing was, it's almost like they had to be that way though, because that's the system that they defend requires it.